Have you ever wanted to learn how to paint pansies in watercolour? This step-by-step tutorial will show you. I'm Karen Rice and welcome to my YouTube channel. These are all the materials I will be using in this demonstration. A full list of these will be in the description below. Just click show more to reveal the description. And I've included a photograph here to show you where to find show more. And here is the beautiful photograph I'm using from pixabay.com, and you'll find a link for this below in the description. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some colours. I'm using Ultramarine with Opera Rose to make a soft blue violet. I'm using my pipette here to add more water to make the wash quite watery. So I'm going to do a few different techniques in this demonstration, but for this petal here, I'm wetting it first and I'm going to paint wet into wet. I've just added a little bit of my manganese blue with some Opera Rose, and I'm painting now with my size 14 silver brush, wet into wet, just around the edge of this petal here, and it creates this beautiful colour, and you can see the way the paint runs down onto the wet watery surface, and it's quite nice to do. My brush is fully loaded with paint. Now what I'm doing is I'm adding the ultramarine with a touch of the Opera Rose and pushing that paint wet into wet so they all fuse together. Now I'm using ultramarine on its own and painting this damp into wet. My size 4 black velvet silver brush just to get the veins into the petal, and I'm using my card now to scratch in and score the surface of the paper to create the details of the veins. As you can see there, it creates some really nice effect. If you're not sure about scratching into the paper because it is permanent, you could let this dry and then paint the veins with a small brush. Now painting the manganese blue and the Opera Rose wet into wet this next petal, and now I'm using ultramarine with a touch of pink and painting in damp into wet with my size 4 brush, more detail on these petals. I'm now using cadmium yellow with a touch of Opera Rose, and I'm painting the centre of these pansies, and I'm dropping water in to dilute it so you get sort of a creamier, darker bit with some lovely lighter bits. Now I've added a touch more Opera Rose to the yellow to get this warmer orangey colour. I'm painting wet in wet again. I'm using the Opera Rose with a tiny touch of the manganese blue, which you can see here, and I'm just varying the colours using the ultramarine, the manganese blue and the Opera Rose, just really sort of giving lots of different shades here. If you want something darker, just thicken up the paint and paint damp into wet. Using the size 4 round brush from Silver Brushes, and I'm just having a fun time here, painting in the details, you know, just getting in the thicker paint to create more textures in the petal. I'm using Winsor Newton's Mineral Violet here. Surface of the paper is damp now and the paint is quite creamy because I want to make this colour really dark. So I'm painting this now damp into damp, quite carefully using my small brush, and just the way the pansy is, the way that detail of the dark in the centre, I'm actually trying to copy that and put the marks out into the damp paint and just push that little lines, you know, just take your time with this. Even if the paper has dried, you could do this wet on dry, so don't worry, just try and just look at the photograph and try and copy that as best you can. Doing the same thing here now to the front petal. I'm painting damp into damp using this lovely mineral violet with the size 4 brush, and just really thinking about what I'm doing, taking my time so don't feel rushed at all. Swapped here now to a larger brush, the size 14. I just wanted to load more paint now. It's not so fiddly here, but this brush has a beautiful point and it carries lots of paint so you can still get detail. And as you can see, I'm just taking my time, painting wet on dry. I love using these plastic cards. It's just an ordinary store card cut up, and I'm just using it to pull out this wet paint to create this lovely pattern and veins on this beautiful pansy. A slightly different technique because the one previous was wet on dry. This is damp into damp. It's nice to mix it up and see what suits you, and I'm just varying the colours again. So I'm painting this centre bit now, not wet on dry but wet on wet, or damp into damp because the paper has dried a little bit. Don't worry about that, just keep going. I'm using the size 4 brush and just varying the quantity of water I'm putting in this wash so you get some light and some darker areas, and I'm also adding a touch of ultramarine every now and again. So I'm going to continue on painting in this style, painting wet on wet, damp into damp, damp into wet, just enjoying the process, just using the ultramarine, the manganese blue, the mineral violet and the opera rose. If you don't have mineral violet, just use an ordinary violet. If you don't have manganese blue, use cerulean. If you don't have opera rose, use permanent rose. Again, I will list these alternatives in the description below. love painting this bit here because I've actually wet the surface of this petal. Remember, I painted the centre wet on dry. I'm painting this detail wet on wet, just getting these lovely, lovely soft colours of the pansy. Beautiful. Just using the colours, the ultramarine, the manganese blue, the opera rose, and just having fun using my size 4 brush, using the tip of it and just getting in all this lovely detail. What I'm doing now is I'm mixing up the cadmium yellow with the manganese blue and the ultramarine with the cadmium yellow. I'm now wetting my background with my size 14 brush, painting very carefully around the petals, and I'm putting in this lovely light colour, working light to dark. I've painted this all wet into wet, but now I've made a thick, creamier paint with the ultramarine and the cadmium yellow, and I'm putting in some darks to really bring out those pansies. So the paint's damp, but the background is still wet. But in some areas though, because of depending how warm your room is, sometimes your background can dry, but don't worry, you can always give that a spray with a spritzer bottle. So after you finish your background, you can start putting in some details. The painting is dry now. I've given it a blow dry, and I'm painting the centre with the cadmium yellow and the opera rose. Just wet on dry, and just around the centres, just where you can see a little bit more detail and darker colours. And now I'm using a damp, clean brush, and I'm just softening what I've done there, just to smudge it and to blend it. And I'm just putting a little darker colour here. I've just added a bit of violet to that orangey colour just to create a little bit more detail in the centre. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting on some darker shades. So I've added the ultramarine and the violet together with a touch of the orange to create this dark. And I've painted in the colour and then softened it with a damp brush to blend out that shadow. I'm just painting in a little bit of detail here, wet on dry, because I'm getting towards the end of the painting now. I'm using the size 4 round brush, and I'm just finishing off, just putting in these tiny bits of detail, really just using the leftover colour in my palette, just to try to look at the photograph and to put these marks in wet on dry. Now I'm just removing the framing tape to reveal this lovely white border. I love this white border because it gets me to look at my paintings objectively, but I really think I will leave that there for now. I'm really pleased with it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and I hope you've learned lots from it. If you'd like to see more of my palette and water pot, and for more tips and techniques, why not join my YouTube channel membership, where you will get more in-depth tutorials and a bonus video just for members each month. All you have to do is click join and you can cancel anytime. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get updates of my latest videos. Thank you again so much for watching this video. Happy painting. Bye for now.